Mark Tronson from the Australian Missionary News. Today I have with me Peter Bentley. Peter is a church and a media consultant who lives in Sydney. Now Peter, can you tell us something about where you grew up and your education, please?
Well, I grew up in country New South Wales, near a coastal area called Kempsey, a smallish town, but I think a lot of people know Kempsey, Mark. They've either been through it or they've even lived there for some time. So. Okay,
now where did you start as a journalist and some of your experiences?
Well, I guess my interest in journalism mainly came about after studying church history at the University of Sydney and starting to write more on church history, which broadened into my interest in the 20th century at the time, the development of the church and ecumenism, and I started writing articles for papers and got involved with one magazine, National Outlook. And it's developed from there, and now I've had about 20 years of writing and researching and doing other things for churches all around Australia.
Right. Now, what would you say would be some of the key ingredients in being able to write Christian material?
Yeah. Look, for me, I think you really have to have a degree of independence, that ability to stand back from your subject and write without fear. Say you're working within a denomination, you might feel you're a bit constrained by the public relations aspect. But I think for journalists, religious journalists especially, you have to stand back and have that fear of being able to write what you need to write and say what you need to say without fear of recrimination or your own self-censorship.
All right. Now, can you give us maybe 2 or 3 key stories that you've written?
Well, the ones that I've been finding fascinating lately are concerning a new TV show from America called Dexter, which is about a serial killer who actually only kills other serial killers. But there's a lot of religious and philosophical questions in this show, and I've been writing in my Culture Connections part on a website articles on that. But that also stimulated my interest to look more at serial killers, and I did find a terribly unfortunate story of Dennis Rader, who is infamous in America as the BTK killer. And I wrote a piece on him and the impact on his church, because he unfortunately was president of a church council of a Lutheran church in Wichita at the time, and he had even tortured one of his victims at the church place. And it was only with the police help, actually, they actually tracked him down through a computer disk to the church and eventually found him. So, but it's an amazing story of someone who had lived 2 completely different lives, masquerading in one sense as a pious, born-again Christian, and yet he had this evil lurking in his heart, which does lurk in all our hearts. I know.
Okay, now let's turn to a philosophical a kind of issue, and it's one that is that concerns lots of Christians all around Australia, and it's that we live in a very tolerant society where people like you and I can write about Christian things, certainly about other faiths, where we've got the freedom to do that. And there is then a lot of discussion about that. And there are other parts of the world where that's simply not allowed. And if you do that, you will end up in the slammer or worse. And yet we give the freedom to those people who live here to espouse those ideas. So can you comment about that?
Yes. Well, it's good we have the freedom in Australia for people to espouse those ideas, but Australia really has such a wonderful base at the moment for freedom of religion, which is, our religious aspects are guaranteed in the Constitution, and I feel that we've got a good and proper basis where, unless there are defamatory reasons about individuals, we should have open and free discussion about all faiths and aspects of faiths, and people able to give good and right comment on those, as people do about Christian aspects of the Christian faith as well. So I'm hoping that Australia won't go down the track of perhaps more draconian aspects.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Well, Peter, Peter Bentley, we thank you very much for those insights. This is Mark Tronson signing off for the Australian Missionary News.